And hi, everyone, again. My name is Artyom. I'm a product manager at a company called JetBrains. First of all, to start with, the title of my talk is a little bit cocky. Things they don't teach at product management courses. Sounds like I'm going to share something insightful with you, like a silver bullet or something. Definitely not. On the contrary, some of the ideas I have are pretty basic. It's just that I have a little problem with different sources that teach you product management here and there with their concepts. I think they're very general, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the facts, the effective things that make product manager a product manager today. A couple of very basic concepts, and I will share some proof of that, I guess. But in order to have a better understanding, sorry, I'm a little bit slow today. I had a very bad sleep. Anyway, to understand the audience a little better, I'd like to know how many product managers do we have here today? Please raise your hands. Oh, okay, good. Other people, marketing managers, maybe? No, developers? Hi, guys. That wasn't intentional. Quality assurance engineers, anyone? Okay, so mostly developers and product managers. Once again, I'm a product manager at JetBrains, and for those of you who don't know about our company, we are quite famous for our developer tools, namely mostly IDEs that stand for integrated development environments. They're like very smart and full-featured code editors for all the popular programming languages that are out there, like Java, C#, Python, JavaScript, and many others. And altogether, JetBrains now serves over 12 million users, and it has over 34 products and going strong. And the reason I'm telling you this is not because I want to promote JetBrains. That's not my job anymore. And yeah, the reason I'm telling you this is because I'd like to tell you more about what I actually do as a product manager, because there's so many product managers and they can do so many different things. So basically what I'm responsible for are 5 things right now. It's qualitative and quantitative research, once again, surveys, customer interviews, UX studies. We'll talk about more about qualitative and quantitative research again a little bit later. I also happen to analyze product stats and add new stats if that's where needed. Of course, I don't do that myself. I have a great developer who helps me with that. But that's mostly for product statistics. I'm also responsible for product vision. So once again, I have a problem with these product management terms, and I have a problem with product management courses. So I'd like to get down to earth this term a little bit. So when I say I'm responsible for product vision, what I'm actually responsible for is prioritizing some distinct bugs and features over thousands of open requests in the bug tracker. And I also happen to be adopting a product design approach to improve feature discoverability, because as you will see a little bit later, my product is a little bit outdated in terms of design, which happens to many programming tools here and there, because it's quite mature. And this is one of the most important things that we have right now based on the first 2 items that I work on all the time. That's how I know these things are important: the design approach and improving the feature discoverability. Of course, I don't do that myself. Recently, I have onboarded a new product designer who helps me with that pretty much. And finally, I work on some user-facing features that need my assistance. What this means is that my product solely has over hundreds of features, and of course, I'm not responsible for managing all of them. There are things like new versions of C# and related frameworks. I don't have good enough expertise in that regard, and there's basic design that people follow, that developers follow. But there are things like as well, like features that users are facing every day, that have complex user scenarios, that have complex design, that bloats the IDE, and this is where it really can help as a product manager dealing with usability stuff. Now, what do I have next? Oh, yeah. A little bit about my product. So ReSharper is a productivity tool for C# developers. Unlike most of the JetBrains IDEs, it's not a standalone IDE. It's a plugin. that works on top of a different desktop application, which is called Visual Studio, created by Microsoft many, many years ago. The reason I'm showing you this screenshot is that so that you can see. So basically, the wireframe you see is Visual Studio, and the editor is Visual Studio. But these pop-ups, the smart stuff below in the tool window, like finding usages and stuff like that, this is all smart resharper functionality. But you can already see that it really bloats the IDE. Some other pictures to show as well. So these pop-ups, those pop-ups, the inability for a user to see a search bar in the action list. These are the things I have to deal with daily, and most of the time as related to design. And the reason I'm showing you this, once again, is to show you how complex really and bloated the application is. And finally, resharper settings. Just as an example, again, we have about 20 sections. Every section has like tens of different options. How would you imagine a user, even if they're a developer, who are really into customizing stuff? How would you imagine a developer as a user to be able to customize all this stuff successfully? So long story short, they really don't customize the IDE that much. So why would we need so many options? This is the stuff I have to deal with all the time. Now, yeah, so the important bits about ReSharper product-wise, it's desktop application and it integrates on top of the other product. It's mature, it's over 18 years old. This also means that it's monetarily successful, because otherwise, why would anyone keep a product for 18 years on the market? It has tons of users. I'm not sure I'm allowed to tell you the actual number, but as you remember, altogether, JetBrains tools serve over 13 million users, and ReSharper is not the smallest tool, so tons of users. It's monstrous. It has over 10 feature subsystems. It has hundreds of features. It's really hard to manage. It also has a huge product team, tons of developers, a lot of QA, support engineers, 2 designers, tech writer, PM, and a team lead, and of course, marketing people that work across 3 products related to ReSharper. And what's also important, we have a pile of tech debt, both internally and externally. Internally, that means that we use an older architecture, because once again, our product is 20 years old. We have lots of unfinished tech tasks and lots of things to refactor. And externally, it means that we have tons of open requests that have been reported by users during the years, and some of them are already obsolete. Some of them should be redesigned, and you have to deal with a tracker all the time with thousands of issues available there. And one final thing that normally goes together with a mature product is the fact that ReSharper has reached its plateau. So it's plateau and has an enormous amount of customers, but it's not growing like Netflix. So here's a very basic thing I had on my mind. What would I do as a PM? What should I do when I have a product which has this particular artifact, which has this specifics? Now, obviously, I'll have to learn why the product stagnates, right? And I do 2 things in this regard. First, primary research, and the second thing, as I've heard today, is called desk research. This is what I call secondary research. So primary research, field market research, surveys with pre-configured questions for quantitative stuff and for qualitative stuff, one-on-ones with customers, focus groups, usability testings, and UX research. Secondary research, product statistics. Normally, I do that to back up the findings with the primary research. Or if I don't have enough time with the primary research, I would just go ahead and do the fast things, which is, well, secondary research normally. So product statistics, market data and trends, and data from support tickets. Then I would translate the discovered data about the stagnation of the product into the proper report for the management. And after that, I'll create an actionable plan, another term, in the form of actual tests, once again in the issue tracker. So I would have to either prioritize of the thousands of features and bug requests that I have. Based on the data I found, I'd rather drop like hundreds of, okay, maybe not hundreds, tens of open requests, and I would prioritize other requests. So, but as a product manager at this particular stage, what I definitely do not care about is a bunch of terms I really have a problem with. Not particularly with the terms, of course, they make a lot of sense. Each of these terms make a lot of sense, but they make sense when they are applied for a particular product at a particular stage of the life cycle of the product, right? So I have a lot of customers. I know I have product market fit. I don't care about pirate metrics and P&L reports and CusDev and JTBD specifically because I do not work for a startup. I don't care about data-driven approach because it's really impossible to do this with such a complex application as a desktop application that has like hundreds of features. So how would you actually build a user session when a user has 100 steps to go through? I mean, it's probably possible, but it will take a data analyst, a team of data analysts to build such stuff for like 5 years. So instead, we use the data-informed approach. We can discuss, if somebody's interested, we can discuss it during the networking session. I don't care about ASOs, SEO, monetization strategies, growth hacking first session, and the aha moment, of course, because these things do not apply to my product, and they probably never will. Another point in this regard, what a normal typical PM course would offer is a bunch of generic stuff, which make a lot of sense. But the problem is that they will not make you, this stuff will make you familiar with the stuff that normally a PM does, but it won't really teach you the specifics of your particular subject field. So my question really is general product management a thing? So I'm working for a huge 20-year-old desktop application, Windows specific, and you may be working for an e-commerce website, like an online store. All of a sudden, SEO becomes a product thing. It's not even a marketing thing, because when you have an online store and you have bad SEO hygiene on your web pages, some of you probably know, those who work with SaaS services, for instance, or e-commerce websites, the robots won't be able to parse your website. You will get zero organic traffic. You would have nothing to work with. And as you probably know, organic traffic is the most important thing when you work with an SaaS application normally. When you work on a mobile application, data-driven approach works because unlike me, who has like 150 screens for every particular feature subsystem or every particular user flow, you would have normally like 10, maybe 20. Okay, this may work. For a custom SaaS, you can have a mix of the first and the second thing. And normally you would have to deal and have lots of headache with payroll and stuff like that. And if you work for a startup, you're likely to be discovering product market fit all the time using the CusDev and jobs to be done methodology because it's the cheapest one, because you don't have to use third-party research services, because unlike Wrike or JetBrains, probably you don't have tens of people who do research every day for you and for other product teams. So you can do that cheap and fast. You can be responsible for monetization specifically as a product manager. I know such product managers. So what they have to deal with is stuff like unit economics, like the customer acquisition costs, LTV, and things like that. They have to push marketers all the time and tell them that their conversions are very bad and stuff like that. Now, you can be a PM of an internal service, and then you don't care about anything other the fact that your colleagues should be happy about what you do. And that's it. No monetization, no bad dreams, nothing like that. And you can even have a physical product. And in this regard, I honestly have no idea how to deal with such a thing, because I've personally never worked with a physical product. So what I'm leading with this, where I'm leading with this, is that instead of, I mean, I don't know, unfortunately, how senior audience we have right now. I think many of these things for senior people make a lot, I mean, are obvious. But unlike, instead of passing this course, for instance, what you really should do is study your market and the subject field. I know I work for a very complex application, but I think it applies to many other fields as well. And when it comes to studying your market and subject field, there are two things. You have to study the market, well, the market overview. You have to learn how to, investigate and find out what your market volume and shares are. Basically, there are very simple ways to do that if you don't have any researchers and things and people like that. That's relatively easy. What's a little bit harder is knowing how to investigate your customers or the general audience if you don't have enough customers and you're wondering about the market, about the potential prospects on the whole. So once again, quantitative and qualitative research, there are different, there are absolutely different things. I mean, qualitative are normally not statistically significant, but that's okay, as Anastasia correctly mentioned in her talk. Which is, I mean, these things you probably already understand pretty well, but the thing that some of the product managers do not agree with me normally is related to studying the product. So eat your own dog food. You've probably heard of these terms, of this term. It refers to a situation where you have to become the user of your product to effectively product manage it. Because I had to, and I still have to, learn different stuff related to C# development, despite the fact that I'm, by my background, is a marketer. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to create any demo scenarios. I wouldn't be able to create scripts. I wouldn't be able to understand the customer. All I would be able to do is to click particular buttons on ReSharper inside Visual Studio and see if these things actually work. But that's not knowing the product. That's not knowing how to use the product. The same thing applies to e-commerce website, for instance. Imagine you are a product manager of an e-commerce website that sells zoo stuff, stuff for pets, and you're not a pet owner. Most likely, you're going to miss a lot of things that would come to a mind of a typical pet owner. And in this regard, they would have these ideas, and they might be looking for something of the website that you would never think about. Of course, once again, you have customer research. Hopefully, it will help. But still, eat your own dog food is one of the most important things I've learned throughout my career, much more important than learning the difference between Kanban and Scrum, for instance. Yeah, and of course, as an additional thing in this regard, you really have to try alternative products from direct and indirect competitors, but that's basically for the same reason. You have to learn how to use your product, and then you'll understand how different product offerings work and what you can basically steal from them and what they're stealing from you, and how they serve their customers. So yeah, first of the things they normally don't teach at generic PM courses that you'll have to invest really a lot to study your market and the subject field real hard. Now, here's another typical PM course for almost $400. It basically will tell you about how to launch a product, about product line planning and roadmap and alternatives. But once again, it will not teach you to become a product manager. Effectively, what you need to do to become a product manager are two particular things. Once again, running a research, but in a different way. Here, I'm talking about studying the market, studying the subject field. And here I'm talking about the making a product decision based on research. So basically, when you have a product hypothesis, you have to first always run some sort of a testing to test your product hypothesis against the market, which seems obvious, but many product managers don't do that. They just go ahead with their product hypothesis, and then the second step, which is about going through the process of implementing a product decision, costs greatly to them. And oftentimes they will fail. I've seen it numerous times, unfortunately. But effectively, of course, the most important thing which makes you a product manager, I think, is the second step, personally going through the process of implementing a product decision, like creating, updating, removing a feature, where a feature is not necessarily a chart or something fancy like an emojis, a set of emojis you want to add to your product offering. But oftentimes, based on the research you ran, you will realize that you have performance hogs, that you have bugs, that you have UI and UX issues, discoverability issues. I really don't make that many new features lately. I mostly fix the stuff, and I'm definitely okay with that, because that will allow me to get more users and make sure that my loyal customers do not go away because of performance hogs. And I consider this a feature. And now, speaking of the exact steps, I'm pretty sure they're obvious to you. You have to set up test requirements, describe user scenarios, design and development. Of course, you should be able to create a wireframe as a product manager with a pen and pencil, or and a piece of paper, or if you're more up to date with Miro or FigJam or whatever you're using in this regard. With the help of a product designer, you should be able to create a mock-up and a prototype, and the developer will then surely create an MVP. Then you'll have to obviously go to the testing phase. I know not every software development company has quality assurance engineers and test engineers. Actually, in this case, in this scenario, you have to do this yourself together with the developer or something like that. But in any case, you'll have to start testing builds internally. You'll have to be inside this process too and try it yourself and see how bad you are at describing user scenarios, for instance. And then you'll have to go on with the early access and beta phase and see what customers have to say about your new product offering, a new feature, or a performance hog fix, or whatever it is you are shipping. And finally, you'll have to release the new feature, whatever it is, the new product decision you've made, and make a conclusion after the mess you've made. Now, I have a question to product managers, and developers apply as well. Which do you think, which is the hardest for you of these 5? Which is the hardest thing to do? Any ideas? Anyone? Okay. So the hardest thing, in my opinion, is definitely describing user scenarios. And this is where you're nodding now, but why did you say this? Describing user scenarios is the hardest, because this is where I honestly suck all the time. And I wanted to give you a particular example because there's been a lot of talking. Now, let me give you a particular example of a very basic feature that I had to add. So what you see is Visual Studio again. And what we did, we decided we want to show the new features that we have recently pushed. And we want to show it inside the product instead of sending our customers to the website. So in order to minimize the funnel, so that more people see what we have recently added, and a simple scenario seemed very easy. So a user opens up their IDE, Visual Studio. Then the ReSharper starts at some point after the VS is ready. ReSharper checks if it's a new major version, and the user runs it for the first time. And if it is, the WhatsApp What's New tab opens up. Seems easy, seems valid. Here is what happens really. A user opens up Visual Studio. Then this user starts working, like typing or reading code or using actions. This is what this screenshot is about. So they're typing something. Then ReSharper starts. Then ReSharper checks if it's a new major version, and the user runs it for the first time. If it is so, if it's the first time the user starts the new version of ReSharper, the What's New tab shows up and steals the focus. Seems, I guess, familiar to you when you open up a website and you see those consent stuff and stuff like that. That's really irritating. So this is not something that should come to production, especially when you have a product with hundreds of thousands of customers, especially if they are developers, because they will tell you how bad you are. Okay, another problem, what really happened? A user opens up Visual Studio, ReSharper starts, ReSharper checks if it's a new major version, things like that. If it is, the What's New tab opens up. But the problem is that for some reason, there is no internet connection. And in this case, we didn't add any processing of such an issue. This is a basic user scenario fail, because I failed to describe this user scenario. And as a result, I didn't get even a message. Users didn't get even a message that something went wrong, that they don't have an internet connection. Instead, they got a blank page. Another scenario, the same stuff. And What's New tab opens up, and Internet security blocks the screen. Internet Explorer, may it rest in peace. On some older machines, it still exists. Oh, look, that's a pun. It blocks the screen because JetBrains.com is not whitelisted, which happens on some of the server machines. So instead of the What's New page, you get this. And let me remind you that this was like the dumbest feature I ever had to do when you look at it. Like, parse the web page. What could be easier? Well, it could be easier not to do anything and, keep the user the way they are. So the second thing you have to learn that they don't teach you at PM courses, that you'll have to learn stuff by doing actual PM work. That's basically this particular steps. Once again, these two. Now, I really didn't have time to tell you a little bit more, I mean, a little bit more in detail about what else they don't teach at PM courses. I'm pretty sure you have your own ideas. I have mine. They are super biased, of course, like how wrong stakeholders can be about your priorities, bets, and actions. Right, I'm not the only one. How you really, PM courses, especially those related to unit economics and performance metrics, will always tell you how you should improve your conversions from 1.5% to 2% when you have millions of users. So, you know, by creating better buttons, by creating better conversions and stuff like that. What they don't tell you about is when your server cannot really process 1 million users. What you really need to do to have better conversions is to get an additional server, because working around some buttons will really not help. And this is the real case that happened to me more than once, actually, luckily not at JetBrains. How to stop blaming marketing for product failures. Let's be honest. Every product manager had that thought at some point of time, right? When you see bad ROIs, when you see low organic traffic in particular, as an ex-marketer, I can assure you, when you see low organic traffic and bad ROIs on your branded traffic, it's very likely, after you spent millions on that, it's very unlikely that something went wrong in the marketing. It's probably something wrong with your product. What you should do in this case, you should go back to Anastasia's talk and listen about research and probably try and see what actually happens with those who try to use your product. It will be not only it will be better, it will also be cheaper than spending another $100,000 on an application that never worked, that customers never needed. Well, D is why you should think twice before joining a startup. Okay, let me put it this way: why you should think twice before joining a startup when you're 30 or older, because well, mental health is very important. Okay. I know it's biased. Let's discuss it at the networking session. I'll be more than happy to hear your other thoughts, because I'm pretty sure you can do the same talk speaking about each point for like an hour. I hope it wasn't too long. And thank you very much for your attention. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Yes, please. Thank you.
You said you were a marketer before you joined the JetBrains itself. But by managing the product, you can show me. First of all, I want to kill myself. I'm not a coder at all.
Okay.
But did you manage to learn how to code, or you just be a basic, most typical product manager makes you able to control what you just shown?
Well, sorry. The question again is whether I code myself. And I don't do anything code related to production. No, I'm basically working with developers. Well, I'm basically doing these things. These two, unfortunately. I'm basically not coding anything myself. When I'm talking about design and development, I never develop anything myself. The only cases where I develop something is when I want to describe when I have a demo scenario. And like a usability testing or something, I create a session, and a session in the coding environment would be to create some new feature, to scaffold an item, to refactor some code across the whole solution. This is when I code, but not in production, no.
But how do you just understand the veins of what you're solving?
It's okay. It only took me 5 years. Honestly, yes. I mean, it's very hard to work with such a complex and it's such a complex application for developers if you have not been doing it specifically for many years. So when I first joined JetBrains in 2016, I had to actually pass a boot camp in Ruby on Rails development. Back at the time, I was at a different project, but the idea was the same. I had to learn to program, unfortunately. Not because it's a bad thing. It's an awesome thing. It's just that I was a marketer. It was very hard.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yes, please. Thank you.
I want to ask why? Why are you doing this? Why do you say why are you in a product that is so old?
I know it will sound like basic PR, but JetBrains consists of great people. They have great work-life balance, and they have great products, and they do not push you about stuff like CAC and LTV because the products are normally successful. And of course, in a way, creating something better than what you see on this particular picture is kind of a challenge. So this is basically why. There was a question over there, I think.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
As a former user of ReSharper, I want to thank you. I really love it. Really.
Thank you very much. What are you using right now?
I'm not a programmer anymore.
Okay.
And your report, I thought, why don't join JetBrains and become a PM of such a wonderful product? Because I know why it is wonderful, and I actually use these settings for a long of time.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, and my question was, well, there is a huge difference in mindset between your actual users, I mean developers, and the decision makers that pay you money. I mean, some, well, chiefs, departments,
Right.
and so on. So how do you manage this gap between these two groups of people? So you need to target to the end users, like developers, but you need to know how to sell this product to the decision makers.
Right.
You need to present some specific metrics, but I can't imagine how I can measure my productivity with the billions of dollars using ReSharper.
Right. Thank you for your question. It's a good one. So every quarter, at some time, we have a debate at our company about how are we going to sell to enterprise instead of selling to the end user. So what we normally do is we just sell to the end user. We never do any particular marketing actions or something that I would be familiar with. We definitely don't do that for ReSharper at the point of time. We always talk to the developer. That's how it works. That's how, what's the word for that? Sorry, I forgot. Сарафанное радио. Word of mouth. Yes, exactly. That's the word of mouth is the greatest tool for JetBrains, honestly. And we'd love to sell to enterprise, but for that we use some particular models, different ones like Toolbox Enterprise. When you pay once more with a premium, but you get every tool, not just ReSharper, but everything JetBrains has in terms of IDEs. That works with enterprise because that's one thing. The other thing, some products, not ReSharper, but some products actually used a marketing technique, a very old one. They go to Forrester Research, and they ask them to try and measure the return on investment on using IntelliJ IDEA. They would then have a 100-pager with all the stuff they measured. I once was part of this project, and then what you would do, you would take this information and you would go to the Fortune 500 representative people like chiefs and stuff like that, tech chiefs. And honestly, I don't know if that sells, but that's what they have recently started doing. But that's a different department, not ReSharper. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Yes, please.
Thank you very much for your talk. Really interesting. One thing I wonder, and this is also very close to me as a product manager in B2B for all these years, but I think it's even more visible here for your product, is we have end users who are, especially if you're selling to enterprise, it's easy to say they're used to bad interfaces because,
It's true.
Because it's true. But the thing is that what we're seeing now more and more is that end user experience just becomes to matter a lot. People start using computers and phones and all of the devices for their personal use. So their expectations are just higher. and they want to see that. And then we have Slack and some other tools that
Right.
actually make us expect more from work tools as well. So how does it affect your product and developers? Does it affect their expectations of the UX of this being a lot more enjoyable versus before when it was okay to have any UX?
Yeah, thank you. Great question, actually. And there will be a short answer. Yeah, so maybe not so short, sorry. So C# developers are a huge bunch of people. There are over 2 million of these people. And many of them started working 20 years ago. They had just one tool that was Visual Studio, which still looks the way it looks. And ReSharper looks accordingly. In many ways. But this is something they would protect till the rest of their life. They do not want any changes, partly because they're 40 and older. That's okay. Partly because it's convenient for them. They know all the shortcuts. They know all the actions. They just don't want to change anything else. For younger generation, JetBrains has a different tool. It looks different. It looks more modern. If you haven't heard of, sorry? Yes, exactly. Yeah, the IntelliJ based tools, it's different department, but they also have their own C# IDE. It looks more up to date. There's a huge UX team led by a tech leader, actually, who have been doing the work to make the products more up to date in terms of the look and feel for already 5 years. And there were huge debates inside JetBrains about how people felt about it, but they just recently updated the design once again, and it looks super modern. And all the younger generations of C# developers say, hey, what are you talking about? We're not using Visual Studio. We just go ahead and use Rider because it looks fresher. That's how JetBrains solves this issue. Thank you. Okay, that's probably it. Thank you very much. You're very kind.